Welcome back to another episode of In the Foxhole. I'm your host, Chnauske.
And I'm Angela Schroeder.
And we are pleased to have our wonderful guest, Mike Dahlke, with us here today. Mike, welcome.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be on with you.
Yes, great. And we just got to hang out with you over at the Huge. I know Angela's going to be up in Nashville next week at AMP. And it's always a great time when we get to be around you. You know, just a wealth of knowledge, some incredible stories that you get to share. And every time I'm at AMP and you're on the stage, it's like, I'm just glued, just waiting to hear what the next story is, the next nugget. And it's just so incredible to be around amazing entrepreneurs like yourself. So thank you for being here today.
Again, my pleasure. Thanks for the kind words. I think you're just saying that because last time we talked about all these stupid things that we did, and everyone got to be glued to hear all the dumb things we've done over business.
Well, it was good enough to bring you on the show. So, but if you would, why don't you just go and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at with your business right now, and anything else you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, so my story is a pretty simple one. There's no silver spoons or business schools in my background. My dad was a road construction worker, and my mom babysat for extra money. Grew up in a small Midwestern town, went to a small Midwestern college, and then got into the entrepreneurial space by buying a distressed asset, a background check business, and then a window cleaning business, and then grew it. And today we own, we'll call it 7 larger businesses that are in the 7 to 8 figure range. And then we own a handful of investments into smaller businesses, maybe someone who's growing up into $1 million or 500,000, handful of real estate, things like that. So we just hired an entire leadership team to start helping run the businesses. So we're really, really excited about it.
That's incredible. That's a lot going on right there. And also just coming off of a great success with the Huge convention.
Yes, it was wonderful. It was the first time in my business career that we went through a quarter, and I'm sure everyone tracks the metrics and things and want to be successful. I've never had a scenario where everything we were tracking for an event or a quarter was all green, 100%. But the Huge was the first one. We hit every attendance goal, every sales goal, all the net promoter score goals. It was really a fun thing to put on, and our team had a ton of fun. And it was great hearing you guys speak. You guys did phenomenal. Feedback was on your talk was excellent. So thank you guys for doing that.
Glad to hear. That was our favorite part, to be able to help close it out.
It was. And just a phenomenal event. Besides the numbers knocking it out of the park, just the experience. Your team did such a great job. And I think that's what events are really about, what each person feels like at the event. And I mean, I know we experienced that, and everyone we talked to, it just was phenomenal in every way. So besides that win, you have so much going on. You condensed that highlight reel. So we can't wait to hear more of the stories diving into it. But any other win you're celebrating?
You know, when you guys said that I had to share one, the one that jumps out the most is I didn't scream at any of the kids at the soccer game this weekend. I have such a hard time. I just want to cheer my kid on and everybody on. And apparently I was getting too intense. So I sat back and I watched, and my son was able to score a couple goals and do some fun stuff. So that was fun. So that personally, I was able to control my enthusiasm for 9-year-old soccer this weekend. So I'm absolutely thrilled about that. And on a business standpoint, I think that the thing I'm most excited about is, me and my partner have been growing our businesses and growing our, we'll call it portfolio businesses by ourselves for a long time. And we hired directly from EOS 3 integrators, one in finance, one in ops, and one in sales. So basically the leadership team that Traction says you're supposed to have. We went out and hired a team that's been working together for 7 to 10 years, depending on who's in that, who they are. And now they're running the business. So the amount of trust you get with the team that is been together that long, they've been in the Foxhole numerous times together, came out loving each other, came out better and stronger every time. It's really a testament to what you can do if you can survive in the Foxhole type moments with a team. And now that they're on our team officially, gosh, it's fun. You saw what they did at the Huge. They're doing it with
Yeah.
a couple of our other companies. It's really cool to see a highly professional team like that succeed.
Awesome. Yeah. Have a great team, and, great things happen. And we got to meet them at, they were at AMP that one time, right?
In June.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, just incredible humans, great speakers, and they seem very, very knowledgeable in all aspects of their specific roles. So,
yeah, and they're specific. You could tell as they were on the stage, their passion for what they do, but like you said, how well they work together. And I love that you just phased, like you can tell they've been in the Foxhole together and came out of it together.
Mm-hmm.
And how important that is, and what a eye opener, I guess, in relationships, not only relationships personally, but really relationships in business, your team, especially the leadership team, how you navigate being in the Foxhole.
Yeah. I mean, I won't get into it too much, but their entire business that they work for was predicated on going into hospitals, and you can't go into hospitals during COVID. So their business went to zero almost overnight, and they were able to survive and turn it around and get into new business lines and do different things. And to your point, Angela, I mean, they were in the Foxhole as deep as you could get it, going from multi-millions to zero, and then we're able to come out and still love each other, and we're really successful on a business standpoint too.
Wow.
Well, speaking of loving it, and Mike, one of the things that really drawed my attention to you speaking, I forget, it was probably a year ago when we're at AMP, and you're talking about your intentional time with your family and your kids, and how you put that phone away and you make time for them. Doesn't matter what's going on, with multiple businesses being ran, and like that really inspired me to be better with myself. And I'm not perfect yet. I'm not close to where you are, but it really does. Like every time I think about something, it resonates back to you speaking to that, to everybody at AMP. And it's great to see somebody so successful like yourself and so busy in businesses, be intentional with their family and the time, and value that.
I appreciate that. It's extremely important. And apparently I'm not perfect either, because I'm still screaming at soccer games at 9-year-old kids. So I'm working on it. Getting better.
I love that story though, because man, it resonated from when my kids were that age. We have such I think it's a thing of entrepreneurs too, right? Like we have such passion that sometimes our passion with our team members, like it's an awareness with our team members, with our kids in a competitive sport, doesn't come across the same way. Our verbalization doesn't come across the same way as everyone else.
100%. And I've got a 9-year-old who's one of the smaller kids, but he's fearless, right? So he wants to be just as good as the kid that's 12 inches taller than him. So I'm trying to cheer him on because he's the underdog. I want him to do well.
That's
and
right.
He'll take on everybody. But I knew I was in trouble when he said, "Dad, I hear you. I have ears." All right. Probably should tone it down a notch.
Well, at least he knows you're paying attention.
That's right.
Yeah, no question.
All right, Mike. So we kind of talked about a little bit, with your team. We like to really just get in the trenches and talk about a moment, or even a couple moments in your business, your career, where life would just sucked. Like you're just ready to say, you know what, business is not for me. I just need to go back to my 9 to 5. What was that moment for you? Who was there to help you, if there's somebody with you? And what have you done to prevent that happening again?
Well, I wish that I could say it was that moment, because it's those moments. I've had many, many, many moments. I've cried in my wife's lap on a Friday from not being able to make payroll and having to cover it personally. I've been sued a handful of times now. We've lost $1 million more than once, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of times where we have just felt like it's done, like we're done. And I think that now it's become a new muscle, kind of where you just are like, okay, here's another one of those things. It's going to suck for a little bit, and I'm going to get on the other side of it, and it's going to be better. The first one that came to mind when thinking about really that first moment where I thought we were done, and we had a handful of them, and my stories could go on for days. But we had a day where early on we had a business in Minneapolis, a business in Cincinnati. We were probably doing upper hundreds of thousands of revenue, maybe like 700,000 total, 800,000. And we got a call that our manager in Cincinnati hurt his shoulder and could no longer work. We had 6 employees and 4 of them quit. One of them, by the time that we were done, the other 4 had quit. The other 2, one of them was going on vacation and the other one said, forget it, like this business is over. So we went from hundreds of thousands of revenue to no employees, and we're 5 states away in Minneapolis. And me and a guy named Brent Burkwall, who still works for Blue Skies in Minneapolis today, are now Kahuna, got in a car at 5:30 at night, drove all the way to Cincinnati, slept in a hotel that obviously had been smoked, probably 40 packs of cigarettes had been smoked in the night before. It was about $30 because that's all we could afford. I think I slept on the floor, he slept on a bed. And then we went and started cleaning windows all day with no real expectation on when we were going to come home. We were trying to hire and we were trying to do different things. I left after a week. He stayed a week. I flew back the next week with another employee. And we saved a business that went from, again, producing probably $650,000 a month at that time to literally 0 employees, no hope, and drove all the way through the night to get there. So lessons learned, but wow, that was the first moment where I felt like, forget this, just shut it down. I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. And that was the first of probably 56 other ones between now and then.
Oh, but what a moment that, as business owners, whatever business it may be in, that like the buck stops here, no matter what falls through, that you have to sometimes jump back in. Like you think you have everything put in place and countless things can happen and go wrong. In your case, sort of a unperfect storm that everything did, but you have to roll your sleeves up and just jump in and do whatever it takes.
100%. And for us, what we learned is that the probability of losing 6 employees was very, very low. The possibility that it was going to happen at some point is extremely high. So even though it was a black swan event that you'd lose everybody, there's still that possibility that you had to prepare for, and we were not prepared for it in any way, shape, or form. But the probability it's going to happen is what, like less than 1% that ever happens. But if you are in business for 100 years and you only have 6 employees, the likelihood that it's going to happen at some point. So we started to take those things that as a high visionary, high opportunistic, high optimistic person like myself would just go, that'll never happen. We started to take those things a little bit more seriously and plan for them.
And 2 things, I think I saw you write it down, but you talked about, the muscle, having a new muscle with all this. And, oftentimes it can be repetitive in certain things with business, the failure, repeat, things like that. But one, the resiliency that you're able to have a rock star with you that said, hey, we're going all in. And you said, I don't know how long we're going, but we're going. So what incredible leadership that was to be able to have him come along with you, stay while you're gone, and help you keep that company alive.
Yeah, like you said, that muscle, I did write that down. In my book, I have a chapter of courage as a muscle, that the most successful people figure out, practice courage more often. We just went skydiving yesterday
Nice.
with the kids. Yeah. So as an example of like getting uncomfortable, overcoming fears, doing big things, and then it strengthens that muscle. And so does bounce back from failure. Of once you've done it, like you recognize that feeling and it's not so overwhelming because you know how to get through that feeling. The actions that you might need to put into place to get over it are different. The steps are different, but the feeling isn't as overwhelming anymore.
Yeah. Different failure, different time I wanted to quit. But the first time we were sued, and I hope none of your listeners get sued, but if you're in business long enough, you can expect it's coming. We got sued by Valpak in Cleveland, Ohio, or Cincinnati, Ohio. They ran 3 Valpaks for us, 3 months worth, And then they continued to run it for 9 months and forgot to stop. And then they realized it. And instead of saying, oops, our bad, we paid for our 3 months. That was what our contract said. They sued us for $28,000. And when they sued us, they sent over a settlement that said, here's 12 grand. You know, if you pay 12 grand, we won't sue you anymore. They were just trying to make up their losses. But I didn't sleep for months when that happened. It made me sick. It made me feel like I was a bad business person, like I was dishonest. And I paid the contract. I did the stuff, all those things. I remember sitting down with a guy who was one of the top prosecutors in Louisiana. He tried a case with Johnny Cochran right after the O.J. Simpson trial. If that gives you any idea how high this guy was. We were at Emerald Steakhouse in Louisiana. I shouldn't have even been there. I wasn't wearing socks. He was wearing a suit and had like money coming out of his ears. And here I was, this lowly window cleaner. And I told him, like, I was like, I'm sorry, I've just got to ask. And he was like, just settle. Like, it's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy. Settle. If your lawyer tells you anything else, don't listen. Settle for as low as possible and get gone. Because the thing that you're going to realize is that the money isn't what matters. It's your mind share that's going to crush you. Mm-hmm. And so going through that, we ended up settling. We got completely extorted by the situation and by the person. But now I bet I've got 3 or 4 other times where I've been extorted legally for money like that. Once by a lady who worked for us for 7 minutes and then walked off the job, said she hurt herself and tried to get workers' comp, things like that. And you just get into this mindset where like that stuff's going to happen. That muscle's built. I know this game. I know what you're doing. But I also know that saying it's the principle of the thing and fighting it is going to cost me my business. I'm going to write the check. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get gone. And I'm going to go back to doing what I do best, which was leading and growing the teams that we're in charge of. So now that's happened enough time, doesn't bother me if that happens. It's just, okay, I've seen this movie before. I know, to your point, Angela, I know how this one ends. And I know I might have to do a little bit different, but it's still the same muscle. Everything's figure outable.
Yes. And like you said, the money that you spend doing that for it to be over, doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, for it to be over. And because otherwise it is sucking your energy thinking about the unknown of what might not happen. And my situations like that weren't in business. They were with divorces, but seems like I will walk away from every amount of money to be done with the energy, to not think about it again. You can always go back to your business, make more money, make way more money for the energy of the worry of the unknown.
I couldn't agree more. Well said.
Well, thanks. And how many places can we put that into place? Now that you're saying that, not just in situations where it's a court of law, both of us, but what things can you just put to bed with money that aren't taking away your energy?
Yeah, so we have a saying, and I don't know where we got it from, but if you've got a problem that money can solve and you've got the money, you don't have a problem. You can solve it right then, right? So that's one thing that we've always tried to take. Now we can still work on the problem. We can still try to massage it so it's less of a problem. But do we have to stress about a problem that money can solve if we've got the money? No, because we can solve the problem. We can still work on it, but we'd rather just solve it if we can do it and get on and move over. So that's the way that we think about it from a financial standpoint as far as problems go.
Mike, so you got multiple businesses and companies that you owned and currently own right now and acquired a bunch too. At what point of that business would you say was the hardest, whether it's, starting a new company or taking over a company that maybe been established, stepping in as a new owner, CEO, things like that? What phase of the business would you say, like, this took a little bit more work than I thought?
Startups, by far, no question, hands down, like, amen. Whatever else I have to say, like, startups are by far the hardest, to the point where I have a deal with my wife that if I start up another company, she divorces me and I can't argue it because they're so ridiculously hard. We We did a couple of them. I'll never do one again unless I absolutely have to and my life depends on it. But the startup, you lose one employee and you've only got one, you lost 100% of your labor. If you got 30 people and you lose one, you lost 3% of your labor. Nothing changes. The other 32 people can make up the slack. But even if you have 2 people and one goes down, that's really hard to make up.
Yeah.
Everything is new. You're doing everything for the first time. You haven't gotten kicked in the teeth enough to have the business and wisdom lessons that you need to really grow. I would say that is far harder. And that's coming from a guy who walked into a business and a turnaround that was negative $800,000 in the bank account. And I think that was an easier transition than our job than our startup. It had revenue, it had a team, it had people who wanted to do good things. That was a lot easier than starting from scratch. That's my personal opinion.
So for somebody who's trying to expand and grow their business, you're saying be easier to invest in buying another company versus to set your roots there and start new?
I would. I mean, think about, some of the things that you've done, JC. You've been pretty successful in the home services space. You know the home services space. You know that customer who buys in the home services space. You know that labor in that home services space. So I'm not necessarily saying don't start a new product line or service line for your company. I'm saying don't go try to start a fork factory and manufacture forks. You don't know a damn thing about it. Don't try to start a car wash. Don't do that. But for everything that we've done, we've been tied to a blue collar worker. So whether it's electricians, janitors, window cleaners, the huge is tied to to that blue collar entrepreneur. So we've always tied to blue collar. If somebody calls and say, I've got a civil engineering firm, we just say that's not us. We don't know that space. So when I say don't start up, I'm not saying don't start a new service line, a new product line. You should do one of those every year, but don't go start a fork factory or buy a bowling alley because you won't know how to run those things.
No, it makes perfect sense.
And should resonate, I hope, with a lot of our audience that are in that still like the purgatory of startup, maybe that, they've got more than one, but they're still in that startup phase. That if it feels hard, this is the hardest area of business. Yes. This is the hardest purgatory that you will be in. And then the problems may get bigger, the numbers get bigger, but you're not in the phase, like you said, that the bus hits one person or the bus hits a couple people. You have so much more resilience and knowledge and wisdom to get yourself through those moments.
100%. And I think that 2 things. One, I think as entrepreneurs, we all have more ideas than we have time and money. And so we want to start up a new thing every day. And that's probably a bad idea. If you can get good at filtering those things, you'll get a lot better at business generally. The second is, and this is another just I want to quit moment. When we started Right Hand Rhino, which is a route work window cleaning business that's now run by Gabe Torres, he was running it at the time too on the sales end. Now we've got over 1,000 accounts, it's in the 7 figures. Gabe runs a great business. He had his I want to quit moment last week, but he's better today. So he's going to be okay. But I remember Gabe would sell the jobs and then I would clean them when we started. And then we had a couple of employees. We had 3 employees and we couldn't get a hold of one of them. Turns out he was in jail. And then we couldn't get a hold of the other one. Turns out he was also in jail. And he called us to tell us that he bailed himself out of jail with the cash that he had been getting from our customers. So not only did he go to jail, but he bailed himself out with our money so that he could get out. And he said, I couldn't pay us back. And he said, good luck finding me. And I remember just thinking, what are we doing? Like, this is so stupid. We're getting $28 a job. And we got two of our 3 employees are in jail. And thank God the third one was still around, or I don't know what we would have done. But I remember Gabe and I just thinking, like, what the hell? Like, there's got to be an easier way to make money. And now I don't know what he's going to do. Let's say he's going to do $1.5 million this year. All reoccurring revenue, a leadership team, admin team, and his worst days are because 3 people quit and it wasn't that big a deal. You know, he's like, oh yeah, you know what? That was nothing compared to whence we came.
Yeah, now you just look back and laugh.
Yeah. Now it's funny. Now it's really funny. At the moment, it was like, I'm going to put feet through windows pretty soon.
Yeah, now, I mean, with some of the issues that I face, I'd like, well, let me get that guy back in jail or something. Give me something easy like that.
Yes. Amen. Like I'll take the 2 employees in jail. Like I still have probably. I wonder if I bet across all my business I'd have 2 employees in jail right now. I would almost guarantee that.
Oh, problems that we thought were the end of the world.
Catastrophic, yeah.
That we would take any day.
Yeah,
well, you talked throughout about leadership team. And one of the biggest things I'd say we both learned from you so much is in the last year, you talking and showing us examples of doing the visionary partnering with integrators well. And not only the concept, but you do it so well. You recognize that you are I like you said, high visionary, highly optimistic, highly opportunistic, and how you recognize that in yourself and become successful by that strong partnership. And we joke about all the time, but it's true. 2 high visionaries in a relationship.
We always say we're going to need an integrator before we need a counselor.
Somebody should have stopped us. Because it's exactly like you said, like you have 100 ideas a day, but you shouldn't do them. And when there's not an integrator, we're like, yeah, okay, let's do that too.
I love your idea.
Yeah. Let's just do it all. Why not?
That's how this show got started.
I have no doubt. It probably was started about 2 weeks after the idea, and you were rocking and rolling, and it's great. No, I think that there's I'm not married to a visionary. My wife is an integrator, a coach, introvert. So it is very opposite in that tendency. I would guarantee I'd have been bankrupt a couple times if she was a visionary, because I was already pretty good at investing money in bad things, and I still am. If it wasn't for her to slow me down, I think I would have crashed and burned many times. But on the flip side of that, there's the integrators. There's a line that I heard on a podcast from the strategic coach that said 85% of the most talented people in the world cannot create purpose for their capability. So they've got this capability to run organization, or be an amazing purchaser, or be an amazing Christmas light person, whatever it is. It takes a visionary to come along and provide purpose for that capability. Otherwise, they're just going to have it. They're going to be sitting there, but they don't know what to do with it. And a lot of times I think that that's where guys like the 2 of you, guys and gals, like the 2 of you, come in and they provide purpose for that capability. So there's a lot of people that are got jobs because you did this podcast. There's a lot of people that have jobs because you have a VA business, and are getting even more purpose because the entrepreneurs are being served, and more people have holiday lights, and there's joy brought to children. There's a whole bunch of purpose to the capability that you guys bring that an integrator typically just doesn't have. They can't find that purpose. They know they got the talent, but they need someone to come along and give them that nudge towards what it really means for them to maximize their capability.
That gave me chills when you said that. Oh, yeah, that is. And yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't have that. And when we can match them with that role that suits and build them up, and let them be part of a vision that's that purpose, not only putting them, matching that skill set for their perfect skill set, but that they get to be part of a big dream. That a lot of times the integrators and the people with the skills that make it all happen, we don't even know what it takes to make the podcast happen. All the people behind the scenes get to use their magic, but they also then get to be part of the big dream.
Yeah, 100%. And for all the people that are listening that are that high visionary, there is very, very few. So getting to a different level of business than I was when I was at 100,000, and getting into the millions and then the tens of millions, what you realize is there's very few good visionaries. Very few. We all think we're good visionaries, but I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still developing. I can tell you there's a lot of visionaries that are all vision and no execution, and they can't, their ego is too big to get that integrator or to provide purpose for others people's capability. So they're constantly jumping back in and doing the thing for the person that they hired, that they gave purpose to. And now they're interrupting and they're doing these things. So to hone your visionary skills over time in getting to be a really good visionary, it's invaluable to the people that work for you. And so don't discount or think that your idea, I got 100 ideas, so I'm crazy. No, you're perfectly like all of us other crazy people. So you just got to get better and better at being able to communicate those things, be able to provide purpose behind those things. Maybe only 1 out of 10 ideas gets to your team, so you don't drive them absolutely insane. There's things you can do to be better, but don't give up on the fact that visionaries, when they're at their peak, are some of the most valuable and influential people in the entire world.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. One thing we were talking about, you talked about hiring your 3 integrators, and I think I'd say 10 years ago in the home service, pressure washing, window cleaning, like hitting $500,000 was the peak, the pinnacle. And then it was $1 million. Now it just seems like $1 million comes pretty easy for a lot of companies. But once they get past that and try and grow or expand, they really need to start getting those key players. And like we talked about being high visionaries, if you don't have that integrator in place, it's hard to execute on those ideas and those thoughts. And then sometimes you fall short, or you're trying to do them all yourself and you're giving 20% here, 30% here, 40% here, and nothing ever gets executed to 100%. You hired those 3 integrators. What made you guys say, hey, we need 3, not just 1? And what did you do to find those 3 rock stars?
Oh, that's so funny. I wish that we were smart enough to have a really good answer here. It was that we're dumb enough to say we should just get 3. There's a joke here that there was the team was getting into hospitals, and their joke they had lined out that they could do 30 hospitals, and they're in a meeting, and one of the visionaries says, "Well, if you're gonna do 30, you might as well do 70," and it just about killed them. So for us, the reality was we were doing a bunch of things okay. We weren't doing anything great. Our speed of execution was starting to slow down. And if I'm being quite honest, we were complacent. So I was going through, so I've had these moments in my life, this is gonna get really personal, where it's on the other side of the foxhole. You're in the foxhole, it really sucks. You get out of the foxhole and things are just easy. You've got that muscle, and it's like you used to do 25-pound dumbbells and now you're doing 15s. And so it happened at about 400,000. It happened at $1.2 million. It happened at 5 million, where it started to feel like I wasn't pushing anymore. I wasn't getting in the foxhole anymore. It was just smooth. And to me, that was the scariest, worst feelings in the world, because it felt like I was going to look back at the end of my career and went, you know what? I phoned it in. And so one of those times after I hired Dan, it did not go very well at Blue Skies, because I was very tough on him, and I thought that I was so smart and all these things. And I really just had nothing better to do all day but to bitch at Dan. So after I got better at that and learned, what happened with these 3 was we were doing very, very well. Our financial needs were met. Our income, we had excess where we can invest, and it was pretty easy. We were in that passive income stage that everybody says you want to get to, and I looked at it and go, "This sucks." Like, imagine being Michael Jordan, and not compare myself to Michael Jordan, but imagine how Michael Jordan felt when he retired. He was at the peak, and now he doesn't get to play the game anymore. So I didn't even get to play the game anymore, right? The checks come and you do the thing. And so I know that sounds Pollyanna and it sounds amazing to a lot of people, but what I can tell you is that it's not as good as it could. It's not as good as striving for the next thing and being ambitious and trying to grow and trying to develop and trying to create new things and leading people. Just getting kind of into the hole in a different way was not a good thing for me. So we came up with a vision that we were going to grow 10 times. We were going to grow to 420 million. We were going to grow the businesses that were doing over $1 million of EBITDA into the 20s. And to do that, there is no way I could do that myself, right? There was no way Kaplan and I could do that. That's way too big. So we said, all right, if we can't do it, what do we need? What are the obstacles in the way? Well, we need a team. We need someone who can sell. We need someone who can handle finance. We need someone who can handle ops. And this team happened to be available through a change in their current business industry that they're in is declining. So it turned out to be a really good opportunity. And so while we were going to look for one, we were going to look for a salesperson. 3 people came available, and we said, hey, if you're going to do one, might as well do 3. What's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst that could happen? Oh,
400,000 of payroll. What's the worst that could happen? Stupid.
Well, there's so much to unpack in that. And that you said, you were in this phase of comfortable, and that happens. You get to a level of success and you're like, this is the goal. This is where I wanted to be. This is where I couldn't imagine being. And not that it's not okay to enjoy success a little bit and say, take a breath after the Foxhole, but that's not where we're meant to be. I mean, it ties in with what you said as, being a really good visionary. That's not where you're called to be. You can't help any more people. And when you become complacent and aren't stretching yourself, people in this visionary role, then you're not going to even stay at that level because your dissatisfaction plays out in an unhealthy way, some way, because we are also adrenaline seekers. I think, those things feed our fire and adrenaline. And if you are not feeding it in your business and growing and doing your calling and what you're supposed to do, you are likely going to chase that adrenaline in some unhealthy way. And then you're a bad leader. If you're not growing, no one in your organization that you're responsible for growing is growing either.
Yeah. And honestly, to the point of your podcast, you don't go in the foxhole anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And there's something about being in that foxhole with people that you love, trust, and you want to fight with that is, maybe that's the adrenaline, or that's where the growth, in my opinion, that's where the growth comes from. Absolutely. So you can't help anybody if you're just sitting on the sidelines. You can only help them if you're going. And I think it's a joy and a privilege to be able to go through some really hard times and jump in the foxhole with people. We're in one right now on 2 of our businesses. And man, it is a lot of fun to fight your way out. Again, maybe that's just me and I might be crazy, but I really enjoy getting in the foxhole. I don't want to be on the sidelines. I want to be in the game.
100% with you on that, because there'll be some times at the office where I'll walk in and they don't like telling me much there, but when I do hear things, I'm like, oh, wait a second, here I am. It's like, let's figure this out together. I'm gonna get dirty and we'll figure it out and get through it. A quote that I heard years ago was, there's no comfort in your growth zone and no growth in your comfort zone. And I will say, even this year, I got comfortable and I didn't realize it. When you were in those comfort zones, did you, step into it and say, all right, I'm just going to take it easy right now? Or it was like you just got comfortable and then one day you're like, wait a second, this is not where I need to be. I need to get out of this.
Yeah. So going back to the muscle, the first couple of times I just got into it and I started looking more. Now I can recognize it, but I got into it. I didn't know the difference. I could feel something was off, but I didn't know. I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't define it. Now I can tell you, when I start looking inward or down the organization, I know that my goals and my purpose isn't big enough to pull me out of where I'm going. So to use the Dan situation example, Dan came in, started working for us. He worked part-time, then he became the CEO. And instead of me looking for the next big thing or the next new idea or the next crazy thing for us to do or innovative solution, I was just looking inward at the organization. Well, we didn't do this right. Well, we didn't do that right. Well, why is this customer complaining, right? Customer's been complaining since the day that Jesus walked the earth. They're never going to stop complaining. Why was I focused on that? And now I notice when I start looking at the organization, I start getting annoyed at little things. My purpose, my vision isn't big enough. I need to go back to that. I need to start thinking about 10 times. I need to start thinking about bigger things. creating more purpose for people, doing more charitable stuff, all that kind of stuff, so that my focus is outward instead of inward. And that's the sign for me to move out and stop being a dick, for lack of better words.
No, I love that analogy. And I think that resonates a lot with me. Like whenever you start to analyze things and are in like analysis paralysis and in your own head about yourself, like you're analyzing yourself or diving too far back into the organization, that you're not focused on the right things. And you said that when you were talking about being a good visionary and a good leader too, of like the way to lead is let those people live in that purpose. And when we don't have enough other big things that are drawing our attention, we're like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How many times have you done that? Hey, how's it going? What are you working on? Let me tell you, I used to do that. Like, first of all, you distract them. Second of all, they always tell you something that you go, well, I'd do it this way. No, I've done every single one of those things. And, one of the here's another thing for me, and I don't know if this resonates with you guys, but for me, when I start looking at the little things, it's hard because if I just look at the big stuff, it's like there's not enough activity going on. Like there's enough workaholicism in me that I just cannot get to the other side. But in my electrical company, I did two things last year. I helped close a $4 million sale, and I hired a CEO. And those two things make up for any amount of activities, screw ups, anything that could possibly happen in the organization the rest of the year. And all of it took this very, very small window of time. If you think about a professional baseball player who hits home runs, they only have to hit 30, 40, 50 home runs to get paid millions of dollars. They don't get paid to play first base. They don't get paid to practice. They don't get paid for the press conference. They only get paid to hit a couple of long balls, or more than a couple, but the long ball. That's it, right? Nobody cares if they hit a single. There's some things as a visionary that you can do in your organization. That one media contract that you buy, that one new service that you launch, that building that gets you into the right spot. There's only a handful of things, and they get bigger and bigger over time, that you really need to do. The rest, you're just trying to feed your dopamine addiction towards, staying busy.
Mm-hmm. That was so impactful. I have all kinds of nuggets. You're right. The rest of the things are just trying to feed your dopamine. And what are those big things that solve everything else, where your focus really needs to be, to take care of everything, take care of the business and everything else.
And a lot of those might be your foxhole moments, right?
Yeah.
Getting out of those foxhole moments.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I know we got time's coming up. One thing I just want to talk about, you got 3 integrators. Just in like a minute or two, can you just talk about the communication, be able to handle all 3 of them on, the different aspects, different levels of business? But managing 1 can be hard, but managing 3, that sounds.
Yeah, so very easy for me because I love these guys like with all my heart. Like I would cut my arm off for them. If you said, who do I want to hang out on the weekend? They're actually enjoyable to be around. They're not like nerdy accountant types, or like what you like in your visionary. You always, at least me, I always think of the integrators like the guys sitting in the corner, like, not talking to anybody. But these are really good people. So I love being around them. A couple of things. One, we do a process called the impact filter from Strategic Coach whenever we have a rock from EOS. So think of a big project. We tell them up front, here's what the result we need written down, and here's what success looks like. And then from there, I meet with them one-on-one and say, what are the obstacles in the way of you contributing to this completion of the rock? That's it. I don't need to know what you did. I don't need to know what you're doing. I just need to know what the obstacles are, because I'm really good at problem solving and I can help you. And then I'll look for the areas of improvement that I think I can help them grow. So we're talking about the rocks, we're talking about any issues that they have, but then I'm also looking at it and saying, I think you can do this. So we've got someone on our team named Nina. She's a perfectionist to a T. Everything's got to be perfect. And what I was noticing was that it would take her a long time to send an email because she really wanted that email to be perfect. Now that's good if you're talking about accounting, taxes, legal, But what we gave her was a book called 80%, which talked about getting the first 80% done as fast as possible and then giving it to somebody else to get you the next 80%. Well, 80% times 80% plus another 80% is 96%. You're dang near perfect. And almost everything outside of taxes and legal can be done at 96% and be really, really good. So looking for those areas, Brock's got, anxiety because he wants to sell more than anyone's ever sold in the history of the world, and helping him remember that he's sold double that he did last year. That's really, really good. Like, be excited, that's success, the gap in the game that you guys are familiar with. We're going through that. So I look at the rocks. Well, what are the obstacles from you achieving the success criteria? And then what are the ways that I can help them grow? Outside of that, I stay out of their way unless they ask a question. I'll answer the phone whenever they call, but I will not get in their way or poke my head in their office or get in their jam.
Awesome.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that was perfect, because that's hard for a lot of people. And like I said, dealing with 3 can be extremely harder. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And we have learned so much. I said that at the beginning, but about work as a visionary, working with an integrator. Like, we both knew an integrator was supposed to be in place, but people don't talk a lot about, and you've given us so much opportunity over the last year that we are so thankful for, of that education of how to properly do it, how to be a good visionary, and how to work with your integrator, and examples of us seeing it. And the examples you just gave are great, because I don't think a lot of people take the time to figure that out. They just are like, yeah, I need an integrator because I'm supposed to have one. And then they don't do a good job of giving that integrator a purpose and letting it go. So thank you. Time went so fast with you, Mike.
Well, last thing I say is, good thing I screwed up so many times so you guys can learn and don't have to screw up as many times as I did.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you're a great storyteller, so it's fun to listen to. We'll just get the opportunity to keep learning. We're honored to get to be in your tribe and get to learn from you. So thank you so much for being on with us, Mike, for your time, for the stories, for all the value that you brought. I know just to us, the takeaways, and to the audience as well.
Yeah, it's always a joy to hear you, see you, Mike. And again, thank you for everything you shared with us today.
My pleasure. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's another episode of In the Foxhole. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for another episode next week.